So, revving up your Flutter IDE. I work on IDEs. This is the talk I submitted. It's largely a talk, though, about UX, right? It's the UX that you have as a Dart and Flutter author, and there'll be some little stories along the way. So here's my plan. I'll talk about who I am, short history as it relates to Dart and Flutter programmers. It will not be too boring. What does success look like? You know, thinking about UX in the IDE space. Next is a slide called The Only Thing I Actually Want You to Remember from this talk. Then I'm going to be demoing Android Studio and VS Code, kind of side by side, what it looks like in each of them to do the common kinds of things. Talk about Flutter DevTools. And then the very last thing I'm going to do is show an LLM thing that you can do, and I'll show it, that you don't know about yet that's really handy for Flutter, right? So that's my plan for today. So who am I? My name is Jaime Wren. I actually came in through an acquisition to Google back in 2010. And shortly after, I started working on a secret project that eventually became Dart. I remember sitting in my Eclipse IDE, renaming stuff to the code to Dash, because at one point that was going to be the name of the language. Of course, it was renamed to Dart. Yeah, so that ages me, I think. And I should also point out, by no means is all of the work and all the IDE stuff, you know, all mine. There's a bunch of people that work on the entire stack all the way down, right? There's lots and lots of people. You know, like VS Code support wouldn't be what it is without Danny. Everyone knows Danny. I should also mention that, you know, Google is a fabulous place to work, diverse, different kinds of people. It's one of the very few places on the planet that like a language like Dart could like come into existence. And even inside of Google, it's a very special place that like something could be built like Flutter, right? Which is the reason that you're all here, right? And so that's one of the reasons, the reason that I continue to work in Flutter and why I continue working in IDEs, right? IDEs are hard. They are important, right? Hot reload is only great, it's only fantastic if people can actually use it, right? Again, usability and UX. So short history, right? So we come into Google, you know, this particular team, and we actually are working on the very first Dart experience, and it's not even on this slide, talking a little bit more in history, which is the Eclipse IDE, and we had the Dart editor, right, way back when, the first demos of what would become Flutter. And what we kind of realized early on, and I was a skeptic here, was that we needed an analysis server, right? So this is well before LSP. And I was not excited about this idea. My coworkers were right. And so we put in place a language server protocol for Eclipse that we eventually used for Android Studio and IntelliJ. And that's the right-hand arrow, right? So this is like now the old language server protocol. Years later, we needed to support VS Code, and so we implemented the other protocol, Microsoft Language Server Protocol, and so that's what supports VS Code. This is what all of your errors and warnings, your refactorings, your code completions, your search, everything goes through. And the cool thing about this, and the reason I'm giving this like short like little history lesson, is that all the code completions should, in theory, be the same, should be the same, right? And yes, there's differences, but for the most large part, right, even like your searching, your refactorings, right, all comes down to the same piece of code that's shared between the two IDEs. Today, and I'll show this a little bit in the demo, we also have our Flutter DevTools, right? So again, we abstract away from the IDEs to put the kind of graphical parts of the IDEs into something that we call DevTools or Flutter DevTools, okay? And then with time, those lines between the Dart Analysis Server and Flutter DevTools will allow us to do cool stuff that's being worked on now, right? I want to make sure I'm not missing anything. Yeah, I've been around a long time. So the other piece I want to point out for abbreviated history here is that there is no correlation, but as the number of Dart language features have gone up over the last many years, and Flutter and whatnot, the amount of hair that I have on my head has been going down. I do not have a slide for that either. One last little piece I want to throw in here, right? Talking about UX. one of the very important things to the original IDE team in Eclipse, the original support in Eclipse, was to have errors and warnings as you type. Now, IntelliJ doesn't have it for Java, but Eclipse did, and it was very important to this team. And it's one of the reasons, in my opinion, right, I'm very biased here, that Dart felt fast, right? It felt mature, right? As you type along, you had syntax errors, right? It feels like a faster language. Is it a faster language? Yes, no, maybe. It depends on how you're measuring it. But that sense of speed, right, of as I type, I can get immediate feedback as early as possible, has been built in to the language, well before Flutter, right? And then things like hot reload come along, and it feels very natural that you should be able to see this thing right away, right? Okay, I'm going to move along. There's also all the command line tooling, right? So the IDEs, right? It's about bringing together all of these different pieces, all of these different tools, right? There's a very large surface area in this space. So what does success look like, right? In an IDE, typing along, keystrokes should not take, multiple tens of seconds or, seconds. Code completion should be under 100 milliseconds. That number actually turns out to be very important. Things like hot reload, to have within a second gives a better user experience. Advanced IDE actions, things like refactorings, you have to go back and forth with the user, might take 10 seconds. But if it were to take way, way, way longer, then that would not be a success. So talk about failures, right? So slow or distracting code completion, missing code refactoring. But this is where I'm going to talk about to tell a short story. So does anyone in the room, I didn't until recently, do you know what a cryptid is? Okay, a few. So cryptid is a description of a mythical character. So the most popular cryptid is Sasquatch. I come from the Pacific Northwest. And the reason I'm bringing up cryptids is because in the IDE space, I keep almost seeing one myself. And it goes like this. You're typing along, okay, you're minding your own business, you're trying to, you've got code completion, whatever. And the LLM has the perfect, 5-8 line code completion, right? You think you saw it, but you just typed in their character, right? So what do? You backspace, right? We've all been there, right? But do you see the perfect? No. And so now you backspace all the way. Now you can't get a screenshot of it either, can you? But if you go look, the electricity was used, right? So yeah, I don't have a name for this. Yeah. Okay. Now I'm going to talk about refrigerators a little bit. Okay, so I went to the University of Oregon, go Ducks, and the instructor, she was a usability instructor. I'm talking about usability today, it's fair. And when she bought her house, she knew at the time that the previous owner had lived in a wheelchair. And it wasn't good or bad or otherwise, right? But what she realized the next year was that when her refrigerator died, that it was significantly easier to have it replaced. There was no stairs to go up. And she had other furniture come in and whatnot, or whatever, right? My point being here, usability, it's not just about what you're getting wrong. It's not even about getting things fast enough, right? It's about a lot more, right? And when we make things more accessible for ourselves, for our customers, you're all front-end, engineers, you make it easier for everybody, right? And it's hard, especially as a software engineer sometimes, right? To be like, oh, I saved, this many milliseconds, or I saved a little bit of time here or there, right? Because it's, if you have a successful app, right, it's thousands or millions of users, it's hard to sometimes have that empathy that you're making impact. right? And to keep that in mind continuously and to make progress in this space with accessibility, with usability, following your intuitions, right? Is critically important. It's critically important. Okay, so this is the only thing I actually want you to remember slide, and it's to actually use your tools. And so very, very easy Google searches here, right? And so I provide them on the screen for you. To print off at home, when you get home, the key bindings for VS Code or for IntelliJ. For people in the room, I literally printed them on the back. So you have no excuse to not have them on your desk and go use them a little bit, right? By just learning just a little bit, using your tools a little bit more, you will be a more efficient programmer, enjoy your experience with Flutter more. Okay. So again, I have VS Code side by side with Android Studio. I'm going to flip back and forth and talk about them a little bit. So the origin story of this talk is I used to run around inside of Google and show people how to hold their IntelliJ. The first third of the talk would be about just IntelliJ in general. Then I would talk about Dart or Flutter, and then I would talk about something else I don't remember. So today is a short amount of time. I'm going to go through and just show what everyone should kind of generally know about, so that if and when you need it, you can go figure it out. Go Google it, whatever. Okay, so to configure, I should show this since it's Flutter, right? Since it's settings, the settings for your Dart Flutter SDK are all in here. Languages, frameworks, Dart Flutter. That's where it is in Android Studio. This is still too small.
Isn't there a shortcut for that?
There is. There is. And I knew it like a day or two ago, and it wasn't working. I would show you. It was this a day or two ago, but that's something else. Yeah, no shortcuts. IntelliJ originally was designed to not need a mouse. Right? So if you ever touch your mouse, you're doing something wrong. And I'm going to get to a way to get off your mouse in a minute to actually learn more of the shortcuts. With VS Code, since it's just a website, basically, it's just command plus and minus. Okay. So the way to get into your settings, because I can never remember it, is command comma. You type in like Dart or Flutter, and then I can never remember or search for the right things. I like to see them, so I click on one of the settings here. So I have control, and I usually just have this tab open to kind of see where certain things are pointed or not pointed. So that's your configuration of your IDEs. It's well documented, but you should know where the settings are in each IDE if you're going to go use them. Okay. Next, the command palette. First, before command palette, IntelliJ has a nice little plugin. Now it's built into the IDE. It's called Presentation Assistant. I have it enabled here. View, Appearance, Presentation Assistant. This means that whenever I do any action up here, command copy, it shows me the name of it and the key bindings for it. And VS Code has it as well. It's not as good, I'll show it. It is enabled, but it's called toggle screencast mode, so that when I do actions, you just saw escape right there, but here's copy. It shows me the key bindings. So why is this important? So if you're not an expert and you know every single key binding, then it will tell you what it should be. So if I'm in the habit of going edit copy, VS Code doesn't actually do it. Edit copy. Android Studio does. I'll show you over here. Copy. It will tell me the name of the action. It will tell me the key binding. So now I know command copy, command C, is what I should do from now on, right? So if I'm doing some weird menu bar constantly, it'll just keep reminding me, oh, this is what you should be doing instead. And if you don't need the reminder anymore, right? So if you're now an expert, you should still have it enabled. The reason is, of course, for pair programming situations. You're working along, peers around you will learn more if they don't have to be staring at your keyboard, but they can be staring at the screen, knowing what you're doing, right? Oh, I didn't realize that you were doing this. And you might say, oh, yes, it's just built into my workflow to speed me up. This is how you learn, this is how you teach. So the Android Studio, I say Android Studio sometimes, I mean IntelliJ, and if I say IntelliJ, I mean Android Studio. It's one and the same from my perspective. That implementation of that feature is a little bit better. In VS Code, it literally just tells me, I guess, what I'm typing, right? So it tells me that garbage, which I don't actually care about. But in Android Studio, I do like it. Presentation Assistant. Okay, next. Everyone should know the key binding for running actions. So in Android Studio, IntelliJ, Command-Shift-A. This is on a Mac. Again, you're going to have your PDF on your desk, so you don't have to remember specifics. Command-Shift-A pulls up your searching of for your actions, right? So let's say that I updated, I'm learning, I'm exploring. You can search, right? So I can type in Dart, I can type in Flutter, right? Same thing for VS Code, right? So this is Command-Shift-P. And again, I can type in Flutter to go learn about what is available to me. I can type in Dart, I can search around. You also have camel casing here. O DevTools, right? And it'll highlight what is available there. That type of kind of camel casing searching actually happens all over the IDE. In IntelliJ, for instance, in the problems view, you can just simply select in here and just start typing whatever, and it'll sort, and you can go up and down through those files. Similar kinds of things in the VS Code setup. After command lookup, the next thing I like to show everybody is the ability to quickly find files. So Command-Shift-O, go to files, right? And again, camel casing is really handy here as well for files, right? So main.dart, m.d will do the appropriate kinds of searches. Underscores are kind of respected. You can do the same thing for classes in Dart. If you use classes, you search like that, classes. Again, lots of documentation on all of this. If you want to get really good at IDE, watch 2 or 3 hours on whichever IDE you use, and you'll be way more proficient when you need to be. I'm just trying to go through highlights for Flutter users. So in VS Code, it's easy to remember. Instead of Command-Shift-P for actions, it's Command-P, and now I'm looking up my files. And again, similar kinds of camel casing. I call it camel casing. There's probably a different name, right? Smart search for your files. When people get used to this, there's options in both IDEs, I believe, to actually remove the ability at all to see which editors are open, right? You just flip to your different files using keyboard bindings like this. So in Android Studio, it's Command-E is recent files, right? So you can imagine I've got list of files that I'm using right now, and I would have this instead of my tabs along the top. Tabs along the top are, as far as user experience for reading, really inefficient, right? Because the distance of each tab is conditional on the width of the file name, which is ridiculous. The way you want to search with the human eye to find a file is by having everything like lined up, right? Okay, so that's file discovery, looking up actions, errors and warnings as you type. So this is a feature, again, built into Dart programming language from the very beginning. Right, so if I type anything, we get errors down here. That was not an accident. Use it. We have things like light up, like the file editor down here, right? I'm showing in both IDEs. I should show it in both IDEs, right? I get a red squiggly, right? Don't take it for granted. It's or do take it for granted, right? These tools are best when you don't even think about them, you don't even notice them, right? But sometimes noticing them, you might appreciate some of them more. Of course, code completion, right? The first IDE utility that people can think of, right? All of the kind of standard expectations around code completion in both IDEs. Okay? With widget constructions, widget constructor invocations is what they're called in the syntax. Folding is very handy, right? So what do I mean? These little swizzles right here. So in Java, constructor invocations don't need to be folded necessarily because you don't put that much stuff in them typically. But in the Dart, in Dart, we do. So I can fold it on the open and close parentheses. And so you can use these. And there's key bindings to have them be open and closed, right? So you can imagine, collapsing, in your head the what you see to match kind of how the code is folded up, right? If I'm not working in a particular widget, I can simply wrap it up, right? If it's not big enough to go into its own method, for instance, right? And then of course the same thing in VS Code. We also have the handy dandy markers at the end of line comments that aren't actually there to mark, to help you map in your brain where the widget kind of starts and ends. Okay. Okay, that's folding. Next, so remember which IDE I'm in. Here it is, command Maya period. Same thing as this little light bulb action. These are all your wrap with, right? Wrap with widget, wrap with center. We don't have unwrap, I guess. So if you don't know about this, you should. It can speed you up, right? Especially with the common ones. And in IntelliJ, it's the same exact experience. Option, enter, I think? Yeah. Little light bulb as well. I don't know who stole it from who, but at least it's, having consistency is good. Okay. Hot reload on save. First, I'm going to show it kind of in Android Studio. A lot of people, even on the Flutter team, aren't aware that you can have an emulator in the IDE itself. So this is one of the big pros using Android Studio over Ultimate or Community. I guess not Ultimate because it has Android Studio in it, but Community is that you've got the emulator right in here. But changes to the layout, right? This is the expectation, right? This is what success looks like, right? Like good fast code completion, hot reload, same window. Then of course, I'm trying to go back and forth here. Right. This is the expectation for the IDEs, right? Fast, hot reload. Getting yourself into a good setup where you can see the output, you're editing, no surprises. Okay. DevTools. I mentioned DevTools earlier. So DevTools is how we have more of a graphical interface when we need it. First, I'm going to show it in VS Code here. So I'm going to stop my app. I'm going to go down to this is the Flutter sidebar. That's what we say, right? So in VS Code, there's not the drop down that Android Studio has. And so we have this sidebar that lets me see all of my devices. And then I can kind of select one, go hit run, and it'll do the right thing. So if you're not using the sidebar yet in VS Code and you're a VS Code user, make sure to get familiar. And off it goes. Now, DevTools integration, because sometimes it's annoying to have to go look up and remember the commands to open up the sidebars for an inspector or whatever. That one right there, right? They're also listed here in the sidebar, right? So Flutter Inspector here, if you're not familiar, this is also getting updated in the coming months as well. So I can click around, navigate to the source. I can make changes to the code, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Right? So this is Dart DevTools, Flutter DevTools, and I can open up the pages from the sidebar to get additional tooling and help and whatnot. So in Android Studio, it looks a little different. Yes, question?
Quick question. I swear it used to go the other way, where you could put your cursor on a widget in code, and then it would take you to where it was in the inspector. Because sometimes you have a big giant tree. Could be wrong here, but
I'd have to go look. I'm not sure. No, I know if you launch the apps differently, so not how I have them here. I don't know if it works with iOS, but launch into an Android device. You can actually click in the app itself. I'll navigate into the inspector and the code as well, right? So with large structures, that's really handy, right? And specifically, the improvements that are being made is so that your width isn't expanded too much for the inspector. So this will get better for large apps as well. So we have Widget Inspector, Dart DevTools inside of VS Code. We also have it inside of Android Studio, right? So it's an embedded browser right in here. It'll launch in just a moment. And here we go, right? So same kind of situation. And like, again, the whole way that it's been architected is code completion is the same story here. The Dart DevTools is the same story, right? And it's not just Dart DevTools, we have the other surface areas as well, right? And one of the really cool things that has really come a far way in the last year, is the ability for pub packages to have their own surface area. So the provider package is a good example of that. So I actually, if you excuse me, and I open up a different example, we could show the Dart Flutter DevTools provider package in the IDE itself. And with VS Code especially, the UX for that is better than it once was. So provider example. Server pod has is another example. There's many examples. And Kinsey, the engineer kind of driving this, has lots of examples. Recently wrote a Medium article and did a video recently with Craig that's worth watching, right? To make pub packages easier to use, whatever that means for that package. So let me get that going here. So this is one of the provider examples. Zooming out to show DevTools extensions, right? So because I'm using the provider package, I can open up and say, okay, this is the surface area for this pub package I have in here. And it lets me change state through this API, so I can test weird situations, right? Negative 120 for the counter app, right? And now I can go test this particular use case, whatever. Okay? And there'll be more coming in this space. It's pretty exciting. Okay, the last item that I wanted to show is a piece of, as an idea, large language model interaction that you can do that you haven't seen before. So when constructing widgets, any Flutter engineer will tell you that there's been some situation where the brackets, braces are misaligned, and you can't get back into a state where you can get Dart parsed anymore. And so what I have done is just locally with Gemini, wired up a little interaction. So let me show it. So the UX, speaking about UX earlier, the UX is not great. But what I'm showing is that the Gemini model, it's Gemini, is actually really good at this, right? So let's say that I'm missing some, I'm in a bad state, right? Those errors and warnings I was talking about earlier that are so handy typically don't point to the right location. Typically don't. This is showing the right line, but it can't fix it for me, right? So it turns out that the Gemini model is actually really good at fixing syntax when it gets broken like this. And so now this is like a true demo, experiment here. Typically works. We'll try it a few times if it doesn't work right away. And so it just fixed it, right? And so I am not a it's pretty fun. And like if you go look at the collabs or the this or that or the other, no one's using it like this. But for Flutter, it turns out to be really handy, right? And so full disclaimer, I am not a medical, don't have a medical degree, but just like hot reload is good for mental health. I mean, I can do this all day long, right? Yeah. It's not local, it's calling out to Gemini Cloud. Oh, this is not available at all, I'm sorry. You'll have to, no, this is just for fun. No, to get things moving, right? Because so many of the LLM actions, tools, whatnot out there are all language agnostic many times, right? And I like showing this example around because it's something language framework specific that I hadn't seen before, so I thought I would share. That is all the content I had. If there's any cute questions, I'm happy to answer them. But I don't want to just stand up here and tell more stories about other cryptids or anything. Yeah. So let's microphone.
So as an engineer with a large team,
yeah.
Especially in a greenfield project or new people coming on, it's the conversation of what.
Yeah. So I think add to it, but I think the question is, with a large greenfield team, which IDE should you use?
Yeah.
Or what approach should be used?
Exactly.
Right.
Because some people come from one platform. What we've kind of done is we suggest this.
Right.
If you don't do this, then
So it's been my experience thinking and working with IDEs and seeing Googlers who are the worst when it comes to tools. That people are going to do whatever they want. To have things well documented, well fleshed out, to have a recommendation, to have everyone on the same page is really good. But developers are going to do what developers are going to do. I was going to say something else. That's the gist of it, right? Yeah. Other questions? Yeah.
Hello. I don't know if I represent the majority of the population. I mean, I'm the kind of guy that uses Vim in VS Code. So, but regarding the quick actions when you hit command period, wrapping and everything, I have shortcuts for all of those.
Yeah.
Is there or has ever been an idea to ship some default shortcuts for those actions, or it will be command period and you pick whatever you want?
People have done all of kinds of weird things, weird setups I've seen integrating that stuff. I mean, it's all in the slides. I showed the analysis server. I have seen individuals who have other IDEs wired up, including Vim, I think, in the past for Dart, to get access to those commands to be able to do them, or the refactorings or whatever else associated with them. So yeah, I mean, there's nothing stopping you from going and having it be the same. This slide. Yeah.
Do you know how to set precedents? If you install another plugin for shortcuts, do you know how to set precedents? For instance, you want that plugin to take precedence over another set of plugins, another set of key bindings, sorry.
Yes. That would be in the settings for your IDE. So command comma gets me into my settings, key maps. This is IntelliJ, and then I can come in here and add and remove. Now, if you have it overloaded, I don't believe you can actually set precedents. And realize that the operating system is going to come along and do its stuff too. So I've gotten into situations where like there might be some plugin for IntelliJ or whatever that I like to use, but now Mac has been updated or Linux has been updated, and now it overrides it. So you have to go figure out where that is in your operating system to go kind of undo it, unless you prefer it, whatever, right? And so plugin authors, right, for IntelliJ and otherwise, try to not have collisions like that. But it does happen, of course. Other questions? Yeah.
This is a really specific question, but within DevTools, specifically the networking one, can I copy and paste? I haven't been able to. I don't know if I'm doing something wrong.
So copy and paste inside of VS Code is especially hard because you're inside of an iframe with special permissions. It's something that our team has looked into and thought a lot about, the keyboard commands. In a lot of places, I think the plan is or was to include a little button where we have a little more permissions to put something on the clipboard. But it's a permissions issue. Again, VS Code is like a big glorified web page. No
Okay, so
judgment.
it would work if I opened it in like a browser or something.
I think so. I
Okay.
think so. Yeah. No, but this is a known issue.
Cool.
You know, go on the threads and
Got it.
yeah.
I should have just
It's
looked
not
that up.
your imagination.
Yeah. Another one is if I use GraphQL, is there like a thing to make that prettier within DevTools networking tab?
I'd have to go Google it.
Or is there a way for me to like write an extension to do that?
To write an extension in DevTools and have it even show up in the IDE is something that people are doing now. ServerPod is a fantastic example. Provider is another example. Kenzie, in an hour and a half walkthrough, actually shows how to do it from scratch, which is fantastic. So if you're interested at all, go watch that. It came out just a few weeks ago.
Awesome, thanks.
Yeah. No, and the use cases are fantastic, right? Like you can imagine, like I have this new pub package, just getting started with it. You know, there's lots of really handy things that like some pub package developer would really like the user to have at their fingertips, right? Like in the runtime or in static analysis. And then to be able to have it in the IDEs is really handy.
Simple request and then a question.
Yeah.
So simple request is, so in the web version of the networking page of DevTools, you can copy JSON responses, but it's painful to just open each one. So if you have a very nested JSON file, the only way that I found to do this is just copy it and then open it in a new folder. Can we just be able to expand all and collapse all? That's a request.
Okay.
Please,
I can go
please.
create an issue. Yeah, but go for it.
My question, so you mentioned this earlier, but I do have a medical degree. Would you be willing to share the magic bracket fixer for Gemini so that we can all have good mental health?
I mean, so I guess my point is that there's really nothing, there's nothing to it. I mean, I'll show you the code afterwards, but it's wired up. So in the Flutter plugin for IntelliJ, we don't have a bring your own key model right now. There's so many of those. I guess my point here is like, in those, because I'm assuming, most people have thought about using one, this is something you can ask Gemini of like, I'm in a bad state with my widgets, LLM, can you please fix it for me? Can be a little bit faster than undo, try again.
Probably the last one, since we're out of time. What is the shortcut to undo a closed tab? You just close the tab and you want to undo it.
I know it in Chrome. What I do
Android
in...
Studio.
Huh?
Android Studio.
No, I know it in Chrome. I don't know it in Android Studio. I use Command E for recent files. This just shows, and then I can search, right? So I can search for, the pub spec I last touched or whatever. Yeah, that's how I do it. There might be a better action. Okay. Command KW, yeah. Yeah. I mean, There's commands for all different kinds of things. Okay, thank you very much. Come up to me afterwards.